Let's knock out our next segment pretty quick here. We have our guest backstage. We're going to bring him on in just a few minutes here. So let's knock out this next segment, Jack. I hope everyone enjoyed the Stay or Go segment. We're going to make that more of a thing going forward. Obviously, we'll get to some more spicier players to see who stays or goes. Now, next segment, a little bit of prospect talk, a little bit of Flyers prospect recap talk, Jack. And first player on the list here, still playing for the London Knights. And just in case you guys didn't, this is not an LA Knights hat. This is a London Knights hat. So pretty cool. They are currently winning their series. I think it's the Oshawa General. Somebody correct me if that's not correct. And they're up 3-0 in the series. And last I saw, they're up 3-0 tonight. So they're going for the sweep for the OHL championship there. That's Barkey and Bonk. So Oliver Bonk, Jack, I got to admit, this is a guy that I hadn't really watched as much this year. And, I watched him a lot the last couple nights. This is a guy that could be borderline top pair guy. Like most likely, like definitively a second pair guy. But he's a guy that can, if he absolutely hits on every level, could be a top pair guy, right? But when I watch him, I'm not sure if everything is going to trend. Like, he's not going to put up 60, 70, 50 points in the NHL, right? But he's going to be a very good player. I took a couple notes here. I'll just breeze through these real quick, just kind of throw them at you. If I can find my tab. I got 600 tabs open, so I apologize.
You weren't very nice to Bonk last episode. I like that.
I was not.
Yeah, all right, change your heart.
Let's go. Skating. So he's a good skater. He's got smooth, powerful strides, covers a lot of ice quickly. Like, he has deceptive. I don't want to say it's speed, but he's deceptively fast. Like 3, 4, 5 strides, he's blue line to blue line. All of a sudden, he's in on goal. Like, he's pretty fast. I don't want to say he's quick or he's like got blazing speed, but for a defenseman, if he's caught, he's getting back quick. At the same time, if there's a rush, he's getting in it. Great vision, kind of sees things unfold before they happen, especially on the offensive end. It's funny because he wasn't drafted for his D, but you can see he's got an offensive brain. He's got an offensive mind about him. There was one play, I think I even shared it, where there was a turnover in their own zone. They were able to break out. And before the play happened, Bonk's already, booking it down to the other end of the ice, receives a pass, goes in on goal, and scores. And that was refreshing for me to see because he wasn't scoring a goal on the power play in the bumper where, maybe he plays that position in the NHL. We'll see. I'm not going to sit here and say probably not because I don't feel like being negative tonight. But we'll see if that happens. But, it was very pleasantly surprised to see what I was seeing. And I watched his last 3 games, in the championship because I felt like those were going to be the more competitive games, and they're winning games 8-1, 9-1. So it's still tough to watch and to get a good judgment just because London is just an absolute juggernaut of a team right now. So another point that I wanted to bring up for this, Jack, was his stick handling was very good as a defenseman. Like, he maneuvered his way out of trouble multiple times, and in one instance, even drew a tripping penalty as a 6'2" defenseman. His passing is also very solid, moves the puck deliberately and rarely turns it over. There was a case where he was pressured and kind of coughed it up the middle. It led to a direct scoring chance for the opposition. Hey, but not everything can be rainbows and unicorns. Sometimes these guys make mistakes. I touched on his ability to read the ice real quick. All right, so you guys want a player comp?
I know you don't, but go ahead.
I don't, but I feel like it does help people. Kind of.
It's fun. Let's be real. It's fun. It's a little fun,
right? If you you see this comment?
Oh, I saw it the second you started talking about Bonk.
So, all right, I'll give you guys a player comp. I got player comps for all three guys we're going to talk about tonight. And, typically I don't like player comps just because for whatever reason we find like the most outrageous name to compare some of these guys to. And then when they don't reach that peak, it's kind of like, oh, this guy's a bust, right?
You don't say Bobby Orr, I'm turning the podcast off.
My player comp for Oliver Bonk is going to be a Colton Parayko. And I think he can put up those types of numbers in the NHL. So Bonk's he's got good reach. You're describing a potential player at center. Oh no, sorry, this is a defenseman, Scott. So yeah, he's long. He's kind of got like a noodly body, or he gets his long stick in the way. He can be physical. He's good along the boards. He's got to fill out a little bit more. Obviously, he's a young kid, but I think he plays like or similar to Colton Parayko, where he's physical, but he's not going to be laying anybody out. Like he's physical in the defensive kind of ways. Does that make sense? Like he'll go to the corners and win battles, but you're not going to see him, dropping anybody on their ass kind of thing.
I mean, that would be. I know Parayko's play when he first was around. Everybody was like, "Oh God, he could be like Pronger a bit," because Parayko's 6'6". Bonk's what 6'2", which you could still play. He's still tall. He can still play. That way. If he can grow into his body, but I would prefer him keep more of that offensive skill and and do what he does on defense, which you already knew about going into the draft. That would be great. He'd be like a slenderer, more efficient Parayko, because Parayko, in my opinion, did not grow into the player I thought he was going to be. If Bonk could, then damn, you got a hell of a player on your hands. Like when I first heard that name, first thing that came up was I know there's a little bit of a size discrepancy, but play style. That's that you had alluded to earlier when you started this top pairing potential. Now, not number one, but top pairing potential D. That would be amazing considering where they drafted him and the hate that they got when they got it. So, I mean, I actually kind of like this one too, which is funny because Radek Bonk played for Ottawa and he played with Wade Redden, and Wade Redden in the late 90s and early 2000s was a hell of a player. So that would be something. That's a throwback. I love it. I mean, that's what drew my eyes to it. That is the throwback right there. So, but again, like these are players that you can win with. Like you can, if you never get that number one defenseman, but you have a plethora of these guys who could play like with your Yorks and I almost said your Reddens, with your Yorks and your Bonks and whoever else they add or draft or get not, and maybe nobody's a number one, but you have a lot of you have just a good solid core. You can win with that, especially if you have a generational talent potentially in Michkov, and Lord knows what to do at center as your forwards. And if they figure out goaltending, like sky could be the limit. So if we can't, and we never do find that number one defenseman, a plethora of these kind of guys will go a long ass way.
That's for sure. And you mentioned Michkov, and I'm going to get to him. All right. We saved the best for first in this episode as far as, recapping prospect season. So obviously Bonk's season is still going. I'll give you his numbers real quick. He's going to be playing in the OHL again next year. I don't think he can play for the Phantoms. So unless he somehow makes the Flyers, which I don't foresee, he'll be playing in the OHL. This season in 60 games, 24 goals, 43 assists, 67 points. And for some, projections here, NHL wise, I think he can be a 35 to 40 point guy with, 5 to 10, maybe 12, something like that goals a season. If you go look at Colton Parayko's numbers, he can hit 10 goals a year. 35 looks like it's his max points wise. But I'm thinking 35 to 40 plus for Bonk. Like I can't see him ever hitting 50. Or like I hope he does. Like a 10 goal, 30 assist season is possible. So there's 40 points. I mean, that's what I see. I see a 35, 40 point guy in the NHL. I don't foresee him scoring, 12 to 15 goals in the power play, obviously. So he's going to have to figure out another way to score goals. And that's why I kind of see the totals as what it is.
But we better at least see them experiment with him in the bumper just for a little bit, for what he was doing in juniors. I mean, come on, Jim. Him,
Yeah.
Michkov, maybe Morgan Frost turns into this, and then when they get a nut front presence, it's game over.
Speaking of net front presence, so Michkov, I was watching. I was watching a lot of him last night, and obviously the first thing that you think of when you think of Michkov is not net front presence, but this kid loves to play around the goal. He needs to be there. There's a magnet like behind the net, and that's where he's playing. Um, and this is what the Flyers need. They need a guy that's hungry for the puck around goal. And it's weird because he's not the biggest guy, Jack. Like watching him in this KHL league, he's small. Like he's not a bigger dude. So I'll just breeze through some of the stats and notes I've taken here for him. And you guys can find all like more of this information on the Fantasy Hockey Now podcast. I'll tweet out the Twitter handle for that in a second. I'm just going to breeze through Michkov because we have our guest waiting and get calling in a second. So Michkov, he loves to use his edges behind the goal. He kind of slips away from defenders. He loves to play with the puck. Like he needs the puck and he likes to make guys look dumb. Very slippery behind the goal. Wreaks havoc in the offensive zone. He'll have no problem adjusting to the speed and I think physicality of the NHL. His passing and handling are elite. Here's one knock though, Jack, and maybe it's because he's far and away the best player on his team right now. I'd like to see him pass the puck sooner sometimes. He's got a tendency to try to maneuver his way out of trouble instead of making the simple pass, right? Like we've all played with that kid growing up who's kind of like a ball hog, like, and you're standing there wide open and he's doing this and that, and he ends up, turning the ball or the puck over or whatever, and you kind of get a little angry at him. That's how I found myself being sometimes. And it happened more than once. It actually happened a lot watching Michkov, where he's got a guy there waiting to accept the pass. And he just made things harder than it should have been, right? Like he knows that he can, maneuver past some of these guys. So he tries to do it. But for somebody like me, just make the simple play, and space will open up and you can get the puck back, So I'm going to be interested to see how that translates when he gets to the NHL, because the guys here, I mean, I'm sure the guys there don't like it, but the guys here that's going to be an adjustment. And maybe that's just something that he's doing now, right? Like he's still a kid. Let's not forget. I think he's 20 years old, something like that, 19, whatever. So he needs to mature and grow out of that. But something, like I said earlier, when I watch these guys, sure, I'll post the goal videos because they get the likes and the clicks and the retweets, whatever. But there are also things that I'll see and I'm just like, ooh, that's not going to fly, right? And that was one of those things. I'm not going to make it a huge deal, but he's kind of a puck hog at sometimes.
Well, they had mentioned being ready for Michkov when he comes over. And I think one of the things is they got players that are here that are, I don't know if you call them better, but they're more seasoned. But potentially getting somebody else in here to play with him or be better than him. I know it sounds crazy and it's not easy to do, but getting a star in here, another star in here is a big deal for everything you just said. So we'll see. Might not be an issue, might be maturity, might be a little bit of everything, but getting that other star potentially at center does a lot more than just upgrade your team. It has a ripple effect through the entire roster.
And while I'm watching him, I'm like, man, this is a guy that I'm going to have to adjust to a little bit because everybody knows by now I don't like fun. I like to watch nice, clean, do it the right way kind of things. And those are the players that I end up kind of liking. I like the guys that kind of bust their ass and, work hard to get where they are. Like when Michkov comes over here, I'm going to have to, just appreciate him for how he is, because he's going to want the puck and he's going to want to do, crazy, sometimes probably stupid stuff with it. And I'm going to be screaming at him to pass the puck sometimes, I'm sure. Right. But if he's going to score 40, 50 goals a season, 100-point seasons, that's fine. Do what you want, because that's coming. The 40, 50 goal, 100-point seasons are coming. Right. When I'm watching this kid, I'm like, you know what? Hog it all you want. You're going to be elite. Right. And speaking of elite, his IQ is elite. At times, he looked too smart for the players he was playing with. He attempted to do too much on his own, as I already mentioned. His anticipation is very good, even while playing defense. But while he's obviously not a two-way guy, right? So I'm going to have to let that not bother me either. Like, his defense is okay. He'll put himself in the position, but he's not in a hurry to get there, if that makes sense. Or like, he's not dogging it, but he's not busting it to get in position to play defense either. So while he's playing defense, you can tell he's thinking about offense. Like, he's waiting for the bad pass so he can go the other way. It's almost like he's annoyed that he has to play defense. You know what I mean? I don't want to say that he doesn't want to play it, but you can just tell he's waiting to get the hell out of the defensive zone. You know what I mean? Which I thought was kind of fun.
Typical
Made
Russian.
me laugh a couple times. Like, man, this guy does not want to be in his own end right now.
Good Russian forward. No problem.
Yeah. Something that surprised me, and I'll only give a couple more here because I don't want to keep Colin waiting anymore. Surprisingly, he's a very good forechecker. Gets into the zone quick and not afraid to lay the body on guys. There was one play where he got in on a forecheck. You know how they kind of sometimes keep it behind the goal, let things reset, and the defender kind of sits in front of the goalie. Well, he went behind, right, and tried to smoke the defender out. Ended up turning the puck over. And was on the scoring end of a give and go because of a turnover that he created. So he'll pressure the puck, in the offensive zone, especially to create offense. Like he's a goal merchant. Like, he was born to score, basically, is what I got while I was watching him. And as I mentioned, there'll be more of this information on another show. Let me get the handle out real quick for you guys here. So we can go on and get Colin in here. Excuse me one second. Let me just get the hand.